Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to take a look at the interesting history of the Ibanez RG guitar. This is a super-strat model guitar that has easily become Ibanez's flagship model guitar. Also, stick around for the whole video for some demos of my RG 550 Genesis reissue. Let's check it out. Now, if you want the backstory about the birth of Ibanez guitars as a brand, go ahead and visit this video right here about the Ibanez lawsuit era guitars. That video will get you up to speed, and I'll put the link in the description as well. Alright, so the RG has a super interesting history in that its origin is kind of up for debate. Most claim that the RGs that we have come to love today were derived from the Ibanez Roadster and Roadstar series. The first Roadster was introduced in 1979, and aside from Fender copies that Ibanez made during the lawsuit era, the Roadster was actually the first Strat style model that Ibanez made. Later in 1981, the Roadster would be replaced by the affordable Ibanez Blazer. Later in 1983, the original Roadster design came back as the Roadstar 2. Then in 1986, the Roadstar body was updated to a more modern look, and the 2 was dropped from the name. Interestingly enough, this was the year that the letters RG replaced RS in the model numbers of the Ibanez guitars. Now let's actually get into the birth of what we know today as the Ibanez RG. Steve Vai at the time was actually using Charvel and Jackson handmade models. Later, he would actually use guitars built by a man named Tom Anderson. Vai, looking into the future and wanting to work with a bigger company, decided to team up with Ibanez and co-design the Gem model. The Gem would then be released at the 1987 NAMM show. At the same show, Ibanez released a derivative of the Gem, and this was the infamous RG 550. And boom, the roots of the flagship instrument for Ibanez was born. The RG 550 featured the Gem's body shape, wood, and hardware, but lacked the costly inlays, DiMarzio pickups, the monkey grip, and the lion claw. Now, where the RG name kind of came from, that's what's really up for debate. What seems to be a popular opinion is that the RG name came from Roadstar or Roadster guitar, so RG. If you have another theory, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Now, something that's interesting is that the Roadstar models would eventually adopt the RG and Gem style body with the sharper horns and more sleek look. So at this time, Ibanez would only offer the RG and Gem with the signature Ibanez headstock that we actually know today. Now, from the late 80s to the early 90s, the Ibanez RG would then swallow up the Roadstar name. Again, this transition period is still up for debate based off the historical evidence. What we do know is that Ibanez stopped promoting the Roadstar name right about 1991. This really left the RG name front and center. Now, during this time, the Roadstar Deluxe and the Roadstar Standard were replaced by the RG 700, 500, 400, and 300 series. So basically, to sum this all up, the transition era began with the RG 550 and Gem in 1987 and ended with no more Roadstars appearing after 1992. So there you have it. Towards the end of the 80s and the early 90s, the RGs underwent a massive expansion. Ibanez would make a clear delineation between their RG 500 series and their RG 700 series. The RG 500 series was considered the standard models of the RG. These guitars would come standard with dot inlays, Ibanez pickups, and the Edge tremolo, whereas the RG 700 series would come with fretboard binding, deluxe inlays, and American-made pickups. Ibanez also started making a budget-friendly RG in the late 80s. These came in the forms of the RG 100 and 300 series. The budget lines would actually go through several different evolutions, eventually becoming the GIO and GRG series that we know today. In 1992, Ibanez tried to do something really crafty with the RG. They introduced what was known as the RT series. This was a guitar that had the modern feel and sleekness of the original RG, but had the overall look and sound of a vintage guitar. The products boasted 24 frets just like the parent models, a non-locking synchronized trem and an alder body instead of basswood, but the model was actually not really successful and was discontinued in 1994. Ibanez would then put out the RX series, which kind of continued the tradition of the fusion guitar. The RX made some corrections with a 22 fret neck and a maple body. Eventually, the RX series was wrapped into the budget brands of the GIO and the GRG series. Now, something that I learned and something that I was super curious about was what's the difference between the Prestige models and the JCustom models. If you're wondering the same thing, here's a quick generalization. Basically, introduced in 1996, the Prestige and the JCustom models featured more exclusive guitars and exclusive features. The JCustom models are really limited edition releases that are mainly made in Japan and released in Japan. Now, Prestige models are upgraded guitars with features that distinguish them from the standard RG models. These upgrades include a hex key holder in the back of the headstock, multi-piece neck construction, higher quality electronics such as upgraded pots and split coil capabilities, and higher quality tremolo bridges. Since 2003, almost all Japanese-made models are released under the Prestige name. Now, a big bonus in these Prestige guitars is that this line usually comes with the Ibanez Edge Pro bridge. Now, going into the late 90s and the 2000s, the RG line has exploded. Many RG derivatives are now being made with awesome upgrades and upgraded construction. For example, there's the neck-through RGT series, the solid archtop RGA, and the short-scale micro RG series. So that's the overall history of the RG from basically its evolution period from the Roadster Roadstar to the several different RG derivatives that really came from the RG 550 that was originally released in 1987. So now let's go over some specs of a standard RG 550, and I'm going to use the 550 Genesis reissue that I have to kind of show you guys. Now, first off, the RG 550 has that characteristic body with the really sharp horns, super-strat look, and the sleek body style. Like most standard RGs, the body is made of basswood, and now traditionally basswood was used for less expensive guitars, but they were found to be pretty good in this model. Originally, gem models also used basswood, but then eventually switched to alder with a basswood veneer. Now, this model is basswood all the way through, but you'll find that a lot of models have that maple top that's usually flame roasted. Now, onto the neck. Most, if not all, RG models are made with maple necks. Older RG necks usually use one single piece of maple, whereas this RG 550 Genesis has a wizard style neck, very thin, a 5-piece construction with both maple and walnut. And as you can probably tell, the fretboard is also maple with dot inlays. Now, this is kind of different from most RG models today because Ibanez has started to use more rosewood fretboards, whereas when the 550 came out, it had both maple and the rosewood models. Now, going to the bridge, this guitar has the standard edge tremolo, and that's pretty standard bridge to have on these RGs. Usually an RG will have anything from a standard low pro edge, a standard edge, or an edge pro bridge. Now remember, those RT and RX models will usually have those non-locking synchronized tremolos. Now, going to the pickup configuration, this is an HSH setup that was on the original 1987 550. This guitar originally came with Ibanez made pickups, and as you can see here, I've replaced the bridge pickup with a Seymour Duncan distortion axis. Now, because it's an HSH design, it's got a 5-position selector switch and 2 knobs for volume and tone. Now, a quick review about this guitar. In my opinion, this guitar holds some of the best value of almost any super-strat style guitar ever made. This specific Genesis 550 was made in Japan, in which a lot of RG models are made in like Indonesia, Korea, and places outside of Japan. The Edge bridge is a phenomenal standard tremolo bridge. In my opinion, because of the way it's made and the locking and the standard hardware that comes with the bridge, it's neck and neck, if not better than some of the Floyd Rose models that cost about 2 times as much. Also, the standard Ibanez made pickups that come with this RG The V8 bridge, the S1 middle pickup, and the V7 neck are all passive pickups, but they sound phenomenal for a stock pickup. Lastly, the back of the neck has that matte finish, there's no gloss, which is super favorable for really any type of playing, but more characteristically favors those shredders. I don't know about you guys, but those glossy necks really makes my thumb kind of sticky and it gets stuck as I play. All right, everybody, so that does it for this video. If you enjoy short videos on guitar history and guitar specs, please subscribe below. That really helps me grow the channel and keep doing it, making these fun videos for you guys. Also, don't forget to visit my TikTok and Instagram located in the description. I'm working on getting some stickers for you guys and I'll send them to you for free, just ask. All right, I hope you all have a great day. I will see you next time.